What if I told you there's a sports car that was so secretive, it disappeared for over 50 years? Today, we're uncovering 3 lost gems from the 1960s that automotive history almost forgot. These aren't your typical barn finds. These are engineering marvels that could have changed everything. Hidden away in a private collection for over 50 years, the 1968 Serenissima Ghia GT represents one of automotive history's most intriguing what-if stories. This singular prototype emerged from the unlikely partnership between Venetian aristocrat Count Giovanni Volpi di Misurata and ambitious Argentine-Italian entrepreneur Alejandro de Tomaso. Count Giovanni Volpi di Misurata inherited more than just wealth when his father passed away in 1962. The younger Volpi had inherited a fortune at age 24 from Count Giuseppe Volpi di Misurata, a prominent politician, financier, and founder of the Venice Film Festival. But Giovanni had bigger dreams than managing family money. In 1961, he founded Scuderia Serenissima, named after Venice's historic title La Serenissima, meaning the most serene. Initially, Volpi was one of Ferrari's best customers, but that relationship quickly soured. The trouble began when Volpi decided to financially support ATS, or Automobili Turismo e Sport. This Formula One team was formed by former Ferrari employees, including Carlo Citti and Giotto Bizzarini, who had left Ferrari after the famous Palace Revolt of 1961. When ATS's disastrous 1963 Formula One campaign ended with the team folding, Volpi found himself seeking new automotive ventures. Enter Alejandro de Tomaso, who had just acquired the legendary Italian coach builder Ghia in 1967. De Tomaso saw an opportunity to leverage the prestigious Serenissima racing name into sales of a high-end sports car. He approached Count Volpi with a proposal to create a successor to the racing cars that had made Serenissima famous. The project was assigned to American designer Tom Tjaarda, who had already established himself at Ghia and would later design the iconic De Tomaso Pantera. Tjaarda incorporated design language from the De Tomaso Mangusta, creating a familial similarity that led many to initially assume the Serenissima GT was an unknown De Tomaso prototype. The resulting car was technically impressive. Under the hood sat a Massimino 3.5-liter V8 engine, later replaced with an Alf Francis M167 V8 of the same displacement. This sophisticated power plant featured twin overhead cams per bank, 3 valves per cylinder with 2 intake and 1 exhaust, and a dry sump lubrication system. 4 Weber 40 DCN, 14 carburetors fed the engine, producing 320 brake horsepower at 7,500 revolutions per minute. Power traveled through a 5-speed Serenissima gearbox to the rear wheels via a limited slip differential. The chassis was equally advanced, featuring backbone construction with independent suspension front and rear, plus disc brakes at all 4 corners. The body measured 4,275 millimeters long and 1,830 millimeters wide, sitting on a 550 millimeter wheelbase. At just 1,060 millimeters tall and weighing 1,450 kilograms, the Serenissima GT had the proportions of a serious performance machine. Tom Tjaarda's design showcased the best of late 1960s Italian automotive styling. Clean, angular lines emphasized performance and sophistication, while carefully proportioned glass areas provided excellent visibility. The low, wedge-shaped profile would later influence the Pantera design, making this forgotten prototype an indirect ancestor of one of the most famous Italian-American sports cars. The car made its public debut at the 1968 Turin Motor Show, painted in green, then appeared at the 1969 Geneva Motor Show and New York International Auto Show in a striking orange finish. Despite the positive reception and the car being fully functional and production-ready, Count Volpi never put the GT into production. Only one example exists, chassis number EX001, making it a true one-off vehicle and one of the rarest cars in automotive history. The Serenissima GT became lost to history for several interconnected reasons. With only one car built, there was no opportunity for automotive press coverage that would normally accompany a production model. The car remained in Count Volpi's private collection for over 5 decades, hidden from public view and automotive historians. When Scuderia Serenissima officially closed in 1970, any connection to the automotive world that might have kept the GT's memory alive disappeared with it. The later success of the Tomaso Pantera, which shared design DNA with the Serenissima GT, meant that automotive historians focused on the successful production car rather than the forgotten prototype. Count Volpi's decision to hold on to the car for over 50 years demonstrates either remarkable sentiment or perhaps hope that someday the Serenissima name might return to automotive prominence. After remaining hidden for over 5 decades, the Serenissima Ghia GT was finally sold at the 2019 Retromobile show in France for $504,053. This marked the first time the car had changed hands since its creation. The new owner has maintained the car in its original condition, preserving this unique piece of automotive history. Automotive historians speculate that had Count Volpi proceeded with production, the Serenissima GT might have competed successfully against contemporary grand tourers like the Lamborghini Miura and Ferrari Daytona. Instead, it remains a tantalizing glimpse of what might have been, a testament to 1960s aristocratic racing heritage, Italian design excellence, and entrepreneurial ambition that never quite reached its full potential. In the twilight years of Italy's golden age of small coach builders, the Moretti 850 Sportiva emerged as a swan song of automotive artistry. This impossibly beautiful sports car represented the survival story of Giovanni Moretti's remarkable company and demonstrated how friendship could literally keep a manufacturer alive. Giovanni Moretti founded his motor company in 1925 at just 21 years old, beginning with motorcycles before gradually evolving into automobile production. By the 1960s, the company's survival depended entirely on a crucial friendship between Giovanni Moretti and Gianni Agnelli, the head of Fiat. Without this relationship, Moretti Motor Company would likely not have survived to see the beginning of the 1960s. This friendship resulted in an unprecedented agreement between Moretti and Fiat to use Fiat chassis and running gear under Moretti's cars, with highly favorable terms that kept the small company alive. The deal proved mutually beneficial. Agnelli's arrangement with Moretti actually profited Fiat on each chassis shipped to Moretti, while Fiat gained beautiful sports cars carrying their name and powered by their engines, all at no direct cost to the larger manufacturer. By the late 1950s, rising costs and overhead had forced Moretti to cease designing and building complete cars. Instead, the company switched to using Fiat mechanicals and chassis for all its conventional automobiles while focusing on creating distinctive, beautiful bodywork. This strategy would prove essential to the company's survival in an increasingly competitive marketplace. The 850 Sportiva project began in the mid-1960s when Moretti decided to create a sports car based on the popular Fiat 850's mechanicals. The car was first shown to the public at the Turin Motor Show in 1965, though it wouldn't enter production until 1967. The timing was perfect. The Fiat 850 had proven popular and reliable, providing an affordable foundation for Moretti's artistic vision. The Sportiva was designed by Swiss designer Danny Brauand, who headed Moretti's styling center after previously working at Ghia. Brauand created what many consider an impossibly beautiful body that clothed the humble Fiat 850 chassis and running gear. The design featured clean, elegant lines typical of mid-1960s Italian sports car styling. Despite sharing its 80-inch wheelbase with the contemporary Fiat 850, the Sportiva looked far more sophisticated and purposeful than its donor car. Brauen's design incorporated functional elements like improved aerodynamics and better weight distribution, making the Sportiva not just prettier than the standard Fiat 850, but also a better-performing vehicle. The car's beauty was not just skin-deep. Under the rear deck sat an 843 cubic centimeter four-cylinder engine, producing 47 horsepower at 6,000 revolutions per minute, with later versions featuring a 982 cubic centimeter engine, producing 61 brake horsepower. The rear-mounted configuration, like the Fiat 850, sent power to the rear wheels through a 4-speed manual transmission and rear-mounted transaxle. The chassis was based on the Fiat 850 platform, sharing the 80-inch wheelbase with its donor car. Independent front and rear suspension kept the wheels in contact with the road, while anti-roll bars, front and rear, helped control body roll. Initially equipped with 4-wheel drum brakes, later versions featured front disc brakes for improved stopping power. At approximately 680 kilograms, the Sportiva offered an excellent power-to-weight ratio for its displacement class. The low weight contributed to impressive performance relative to engine size, proving that exceptional design could elevate even modest mechanical components into something greater than the sum of its parts. The Sportiva was available in multiple configurations, including a 2-seat coupe designated the S2 model, which is widely considered most desirable, a 4-seater variant, and a 2-seat convertible. Cars were essentially built to order with customer-specified final details, reflecting the artisanal tradition of Italian coach builders. Production numbers for the Moretti 850 Sportiva remain somewhat unclear, with conflicting information from different sources. Some sources suggest approximately 300 examples were built between 1967 and 1971, while Giovanni Moretti himself more recently stated that only 40 Sportivas were constructed. The 2-seat Coupe S2 model saw approximately 52 examples made, and of the total production, it is believed less than half have survived. The discrepancy in production numbers may reflect the hand-built, essentially custom nature of these cars, where exact records were not always maintained with modern precision. Original pricing at launch in 1967 was 1,095,000 lire, positioning it as an affordable exotic. The Moretti 850 Sportiva represented several important aspects of 1960s automotive culture. It embodied the Italian tradition of small carrozzerie, creating beautiful, limited production vehicles that transformed humble mechanical components into works of art. The Sportiva demonstrated how small manufacturers could survive in an increasingly competitive market by focusing on design and craftsmanship rather than mechanical innovation. Built on affordable Fiat mechanicals, the Sportiva offered exotic car looks and performance to buyers who couldn't afford a Ferrari or Lamborghini. It proved that exceptional design could elevate even modest mechanical components, creating a vehicle that was greater than the sum of its parts. Several factors contributed to the Moretti 850 Sportiva fading from automotive memory. With only 40 to 300 cars built depending on the source, there were simply too few examples to maintain public awareness. Moretti lacked the marketing resources and international presence of larger manufacturers, limiting the car's exposure beyond Italy. Cars based on Fiat 850 components were often dismissed by enthusiasts seeking more exotic powertrains, despite the Sportiva's superior styling and performance. In the world of 1960s British motorsport, where ingenuity often triumphed over resources, few cars embodied this philosophy better than the Costin-Nathan GT. This remarkable machine represented the perfect marriage of Frank Costin's aeronautical engineering genius and Roger Nathan's racing expertise, creating what many consider the ultimate expression of lightweight racing car design. Frank Costin, brother of Mike Costin, who formed the Cos in Cosworth, was already famous in motorsport circles for applying aeronautical engineering principles to race car design. His experience included significant contributions to Lotus's early success, particularly in developing lightweight, aerodynamically efficient race cars that could punch above their weight class. In 1965, Costin conceived a truly ultralight racing car with a central engine layout. His vision was to create the ultimate lightweight racer using his signature construction technique, a plywood monocoque chassis. This wasn't merely cost-cutting. It was sophisticated engineering that drew from his aircraft background to create structures that were both lighter and stronger than conventional steel tube construction. Successful Lotus Elite racing driver Roger Nathan brought the perfect complement to Costin's structural brilliance. Nathan contributed the highly modified Hillman Imp engine and transaxle, drawing from his extensive experience racing the Lotus Elite. He understood what made a successful racing car from a driver's perspective, and his mechanical expertise with small displacement engines proved the ideal match for Costin's innovative chassis design. The partnership proved inspired from the start. Initially, 2 open Costin-Nathan racing cars were built based on the plywood monocoque design. Roger Nathan achieved considerable success with his car, competing up to international level and demonstrating that the concept worked brilliantly in practice. Inspired by this racing success, the partners developed a GT Coupe version for 1967, launching it at the London Racing Car Show in January of that year. The Costin-Nathan GT featured revolutionary construction techniques that set it apart from every contemporary racing car. The wooden monocoque chassis structure was formed from marine-quality Okume plywood from Gabon. This exotic wood was chosen for its exceptional strength-to-weight ratio and resistance to moisture, crucial factors given British racing conditions. Costin-Nathan was so confident in their construction that they guaranteed the plywood chassis for 10 years. The monocoque center section was made of resin-bonded plywood, reflecting Costin's previous work on the Marcos, with front and rear frames constructed from steel tubing. This hybrid approach provided the ideal balance of strength, weight, and cost-effectiveness, while demonstrating that advanced materials could revolutionize automotive construction. The heart of the machine was a highly modified Hillman Imp-based engine, displacing 998 cubic centimeters. Roger Nathan's modifications consolidated internal components and added twin Weber carburetors, extracting 97 to 110 horsepower from the tiny power plant, nearly 100 horsepower per liter. The engine was mid-mounted and angled 54 degrees to the right in the chassis, an unusual installation that required a completely revised lubrication system, but allowed for optimal weight distribution. The complete engine unit weighed just 77 kilograms, and the entire car tipped the scales at less than 350 to 400 kilograms. This extraordinary power-to-weight ratio of approximately 250 horsepower per ton provided performance rivaling much larger, more expensive racing cars. The glass fiber body shell was designed by Costin, using his aeronautical background to minimize drag while providing adequate cooling and structural integrity. The Costin-Nathan GT achieved remarkable success in period racing that validated every aspect of its design philosophy. The car made its racing debut at Brands Hatch in April 1966, competing in 6 races during 1966 and winning 5 category victories. The very first race appearance featured a spider-type open body shell, demonstrating the versatility of the basic design. International recognition came with a David versus Goliath victory in the 1966 Coupe de Paris at the famous Montléry circuit, where the tiny British car defeated much larger and more powerful opponents through superior engineering and driving. In 1968, The GT won 2 national British championships, the Motoring News GT Championship and the Tootle Menswear GT Championship. The car's success demonstrated Frank Costin's fundamental belief that aerodynamic efficiency and lightweight construction could overcome raw power, a philosophy that would later influence much larger manufacturers. This approach represented the quintessential British motorsport philosophy of using intelligence and innovation to overcome resource limitations. The Costin-Nathan GT was produced in extremely limited numbers, making it one of the rarest GT cars ever made. Total production reached just 18 cars in 1968, known interchangeably as Costin-Nathan GT or Astra. This tiny production run makes surviving examples extraordinarily rare, with some examples described as one of one or very special Frank Costin-designed one-offs. Several factors contributed to the Costin-Nathan GT's obscurity, despite its remarkable achievements. With only 18 cars built, there were too few examples to maintain public awareness or create a significant enthusiast following. As a small-scale operation, Costin-Nathan lacked the resources for significant promotion or media coverage. The car was designed for serious racing enthusiasts, limiting its appeal to mainstream automotive audiences. Both Costin and Nathan eventually moved on to other projects, leaving no ongoing corporate presence to maintain the model's legacy. Evolution in racing regulations and categories meant the car's competitive window was relatively brief, though its influence on racing car design principles lasted much longer. Frank Costin's use of exotic plywood construction was so successful that it influenced other manufacturers to experiment with alternative materials, a practice that eventually led to modern carbon fiber construction. Roger Nathan's ability to extract nearly 100 horsepower from a 1-liter Hillman imp engine was considered almost magical by contemporary standards, demonstrating the potential hidden in mass production components. Today, surviving Costin-Nathan GTs are among the most sought-after British racing cars. Examples are described as highly desirable and rarely available, with current pricing typically listed as price on application, indicating very high values. The extreme rarity, significant racing heritage, and Frank Costin's reputation as a designer make these cars highly valuable among collectors specializing in innovative engineering solutions.